Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Construction Executives Gain More Efficiency, Productivity, and Reduce Risk by Solving Your Document Management Chaos. We're excited to have you. My name is Tess Littler and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. We think you'll find it quite informative. We're going to discuss the construction industry's top 5 fundamental problems with document organization and, more importantly, how to solve them. This is fantastic information, and I am sure you'll take away several actionable ideas to help you gain efficiencies and control over your documentation processes. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items. Please note the slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button located in the right-hand corner of your presentation window. Should you need technical assistance, click on the Help widget located on the bottom left corner of your console. We encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Ask Questions button at the bottom of your console. We'll do our best to answer them during Q&A. You will also receive an email with instructions for accessing the on-demand recording of today's webinar. The format is as follows. We'll discuss common problems the construction industry faces when it comes to document control and how InEight's document management software is a viable solution to addressing those issues. It will be a bit of show and tell today, and I feel confident you'll learn more about InEight's capabilities, yes, but more importantly, about some of the key features you'll want to seek out as you investigate options. Now it's time for some quick introductions. My name is Tess Littler, and I'm a contributing writer for Construction Dive Brand Studio with over 20 years of experience in the construction industry. I've written thousands of pieces of content for construction-related professionals and their trade associations, from white papers and case studies to testimony used at code hearings and on Capitol Hill. My co-host today is Brad Barth, the Chief Product Officer at InEight. Built on a history of construction and engineering excellence, InEight's construction project management software solution spans the entire project lifecycle from initial project scoping to turnover to asset management. They provide real-time information and insights needed to minimize risk, manage project documentation, improve operational efficiency, control project costs, make educated decisions, and collaborate easily with all project stakeholders. Now for today's webinar. The point of today's webinar is to hold a candid discussion about some of the biggest problems the construction industry faces and, more importantly, offer some actionable solutions you can take. So as we say in Construction Dive, let's dive in. The construction industry is in the midst of a tremendous change. Technology advancements are transforming the industry and hold the potential to solve age-old challenges of delivering projects on time and on budget. Everyone involved, from contractors to engineers to owners, must innovate or run the risk of becoming obsolete. The question is how best to use technology without drowning in a sea of information. The construction industry is unique from other industries because information must be passed across many different people working for many different companies across numerous locations. Even using date-old information to make key decisions can often result in a huge mistake, costing the company materials, man-hours, productivity, and even the confidence of their client. When the average profit margin is a mere 6%, there's no room for these types of mistakes. So how do you get the right information into the right hands? This is the heart of what Document Management Solutions needs to do for those working in the construction industry, and what we'll spend the next 30 minutes or so discussing. With that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Brad.
Thank you, Tess. Thanks for having me here today. I appreciate the opportunity to go through this really important topic. I think everybody in the industry, or most in the industry, would agree that the challenge of locating information and the information overload, as a lot of people describe it, is one of the biggest problems in our industry today. And it used to be, creating the information and creating the documents and everything was the biggest challenge, right? Creating the information in the first place. And now it seems like, just getting to the information and getting it to the right people is a bigger challenge. And what we're talking about when we talk about information in the construction industry, it's all the traditional, document specs, drawings. But lately, it's also, of course, emails. It's photos coming from drones, job site photos, models, all kinds of information that is critical to achieving success on a construction project. And the ability to locate that information becomes very challenging due to a few reasons. Number one, people are in multiple locations, multiple stakeholders, multiple companies, sometimes dozens of companies collaborating together on a project, and they're not all sitting together in the same room. So keeping that information up to date and easily accessible by everybody is a challenge we all face. And frankly, the information is great, and I think most people do a really good job of having that information somewhere. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's that it's often just challenging to find it when you need it. And the deadlines of these projects, of course, make it really important that you respond quickly and you get information out quickly as it changes. So, ultimately, the information is useless if you can't find it in a timely manner. It might be there and it might be correct, but if you can't get to it, can't get it to the right person, then it's useless. And in fact, we saw a study that was done in our industry by FMI in 2018 along those lines about how much time do construction professionals spend just looking for information. So it was a really relevant study, and the result of that was 5 hours per week was kind of the average. Some were worse, some were better, but 5 hours per week by project engineers, project managers, field engineer types, just looking for information. And that doesn't even count, the time that it takes to, create the information or go get it again if you can't find it, right? So you've got 5 hours a week just looking for stuff. Then if you can't find it, now you've got the ripple effect of somebody's got to recreate it or go find it and send it again. So it's a significant problem and can really drive efficiencies if you can solve the problem. So how do we solve the problem? InEight's belief is that we solve that problem through what we call a single source of searchable truth. And all of those words are important in there. Single source, I think everybody can understand that. We want to make sure that those silos that exist out there today are broken down. So a lot of information today is kept in various places. Could be Dropbox, could be SharePoint. Even the Microsoft Outlook itself becomes a repository of attachments and emails, and all the different software solutions that companies in the construction industry use today. They create documentation, they create reports, they create artifacts that all end up in various places, right? Which makes it tough to find the latest version of that information that's being generated. So that is, the single source part of that, the one source. We want to ideally bring together all of that content into one place so that everybody's got a well-known, common, consistent place to go find information. The other part of that one source of searchable truth is the searchable part. Right? We want to be able to, now that we've got all that information in a common repository, we want to be able to easily find it and easily get to the information that you're looking for in that what could be a very massive repository. So the InEight solution does some really nice things along those lines to help you find stuff that you're looking for. One of those is the ability to link information together. So, being able to associate project information in one format to project information in another format is really critical and a really nice capability. So, we might have the information we're looking for is in a drawing, let's say, but we know that I can't find the drawing for whatever reason, but I know that there was an email about it, or I know that there was a photo that I associated with that drawing. So by doing those links, I can easily, if I find the drawing, then I can find the email, or if I can find the email, then I can find the photo. So you can link information together so that you can kind of go through those breadcrumbs, if you will, to try to find the information that you're looking for. Another way to make it easy to find information is just putting the information in a tree, in a logical structure, that makes it easy to find what you need at that moment. So, for example, you might take all of your drawings, specs, documents, photos, and maybe categorize them, right? You might categorize them by discipline. You might categorize them by area of the site. You might categorize them by stakeholder. Certainly dates, another way to categorize keywords. So what the InEight solution does, it really gives you a great way to show me all that information now in whatever hierarchy makes sense, whatever tree structure makes sense. Show it to me in a tree organized by discipline. Show it to me broken down maybe by phase and then by date. Show it to me by stakeholder or by revision number. So just, all kinds of ways that you can easily search through a tree to find the information you need at that moment. And then lastly, in terms of finding the information, certainly the ability to just do a Google-type keyword search is critical. And that's kind of expected today. Everybody's used to using Google. The InEight solution provides the same type of keyword search so that you can put in anything you know about that document that you're looking for, any particular keyword or attribute, and the tool will go and find it for you. So let's go to the second challenge that we've got in our industry around document management chaos, and that's distribution and accuracy. The information that we have in our repository is only useful if it's accurate and it's recent, right? If we've made some changes to it, we want to make sure that folks are referencing the latest version of that documentation, no matter what it is. In fact, it's not only an issue of efficiency loss if we're not getting the most recent document or drawing, but it could be a significant cost and risk issue if we are building off of old documentation. So making sure that the information is accurate and timely is absolutely critical in our industry. And it's particularly challenging in construction, as everybody knows, because things change all the time. As projects move along, we've got changes, we've got design changes, scope changes, situational changes, condition changes, and all of that puts pressure on that information that we're storing in the repository. So as things change, we need to create new specs, new documents, new drawings, and make sure that the folks that need that stuff get the latest versions. So, and that's the distribution part. Right? We need to make sure, how do we make sure that, all of the folks that are working on these projects that might be, as we talked about, in many different locations, how do they get the latest information? Certainly having a single source of truth makes it easy, and if we can instill behavior in all the different stakeholders in the project that, hey, when you need something, you don't use the one that you downloaded a week ago or a month ago, you always go get the latest version from that common repository. And that goes a long way to making sure people are working off the latest information. But the other thing that we can do is be proactive about that. So from a distribution perspective, we can go in and create collaboration to make sure everybody stays up to date. As we go through this, you'll see some quotes from some of our customers and some of the things they told us as we worked with them prior to them becoming a customer, some of the problems they were trying to solve with the InEight solution. And you see the quote there from one of those folks at a contractor on the contractor side of the coin. And you see this frustration, right? Just how do we keep everybody informed? How do we keep everybody up to date with the latest information? Phone calls aren't good enough. Emails aren't good enough. There's got to be a better way to do it. Along those lines, trying to make sure that we don't get into a rework situation is another challenge, right? As I mentioned, if we start working with outdated information or incorrect information, that poses a serious risk to the projects in terms of doing work that we're going to have to do over again, which is costly and adds time and schedule risk to the project. So InEight document management solution deals with that problem through a truly collaborative document management system. And the collaborative part of that takes a few different forms. One of those is the ability to route information to specific people based on their roles and based on what it is they need to see. So again, whether it's drawings or photos or documents, anything coming into the repository can be automatically routed to folks on the team, both internally and externally, not just our own company, but the companies we're working with. Information can be routed to them to make sure they are notified when there is something new, so they, A, know about it, and then B, can quickly jump into the latest versions with links. They can jump right into the latest version of a particular document or drawing or spec, anything that needs to be updated and routed around. So the nice thing about that is once we've defined those roles and who's the audience that cares about certain types of documentation, it's really just a set it and forget it kind of a thing. I don't have to worry about it anymore. As a new version of that drawing comes in, it can automatically get routed around to the right folks. The other thing that we can do is really make it easy to package up documentation and create packages that get routed around. It's not just a single document. Transmittals, submittals, RFIs, all kinds of use cases that would require a group of documents and drawings and so forth to be routed around. You can create those packages, to put related documentation together so that it all goes as a group, and then you can have a nice customized transmittal letter on top of that that kind of describes, what is it that's routing around, what's changed, and again, with links right into the specific documents that have changed. So it really goes a long way towards eliminating that challenge of, making sure I'm using the right information and everybody's got access to that new content as it changes. So that brings us to our third problem that document management solutions like InEight can solve, and that is risk. Certainly everybody recognizes in the construction industry there's a tremendous amount of risk, regardless of your role, whether you're on the owner side, contractor side, subcontractor, engineer. We all have a role to play to minimize the risk. And part of that risk is exactly as we talked about earlier, and that's the risk of working off of outdated or incorrect information. Another part of that, of minimizing risk, is making sure that everybody is held accountable and everybody understands what is expected of them, and that has to do with workflows, it has to do with notifications, it has to do with making sure that everybody is informed. And when that doesn't go well, risk goes up. So how does InEight document management solutions solve the risk problem? The InEight solution really tackles risk in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, it is collaborative, as we talked about. So it does a nice job of keeping everybody informed, sending notifications when things change, also creating workflows, right? So as things need to go through a review process, for example, there's a workflow that you can create that steps that document or drawing, whatever it is, through a workflow. Right, and folks that receive that or participate in that workflow can have different roles. Somebody might be a reviewer only. Somebody might be an approver. Once they've approved it, let's say, it needs to go to the next step. So defining those workflows and those roles, make sure that everybody is doing their part on the project, making sure that everybody knows what's expected of them and something's not just sitting there waiting to cause a problem that is just not known yet. So that ability to track those workflows, let the system do kind of that grunt work in terms of it knows what needs to be done when a document changes or a new drawing comes in, and it knows who to route it to, and it knows where that document or drawing is in that sort of life cycle, right? What needs to be done next to it, and start to send reminders and things like that. So that collaborative bit really goes a long way towards eliminating risk. The second part is an audit trail. So one of the nice things about having that single source of document truth is that audit trail. We can tell you, based on the system stats, it can tell you, who received a particular drawing or document. When did they last look at it? Did they participate in a workflow as things were routed through the process? And what that does, it really drives accountability, and it also minimizes and avoids disputes, and it avoids the productivity killing phone calls, emails going back and forth to point fingers, essentially, right? We get rid of all the, well, I never got that document. Oh, well, I sent it to you. Oh, it must be on a different machine somewhere. All of that goes away, right? We've got a single place where the documents reside. The system keeps stats on who saw it, who downloaded it. All of that information is at our fingertips. And like I said, that certainly comes in handy if you do get into a dispute or if you're trying to avoid a claim or that sort of thing. You've got all that audit trail. But even better, because that exists, it drives better accountability by everybody and makes sure that everybody is upholding their end of the bargain on the contracts. So let's go to problem number 4. So in terms of document management challenges, this problem is really a significant one, and that's that communication breakdown. A lot of information exists today that is critical, right? People have to search through this information overload or filter through this information overload and decide, what's important, what's not important, what do I need to deal with today, what can wait till tomorrow, right? So all of that information, having that at your fingertips and being able to participate in that easy communication is a critical challenge that folks need to solve, right? So the traditional approach of phone calls and emails works to some degree, but as you start to get dozens or hundreds of people involved in the projects, they're fast-moving, things change quickly. Everybody pretty quickly recognizes emails and phone calls are only going to get us so far. So how does the InEight document management solution solve that particular problem, right? For communication issues, we talked a little bit about workflows. Let's get into those in a little more detail. So certainly as it relates to documentation and getting information to the right people at the right time, the workflow capability within an InEight document is a godsend, right? We can go in and define what those workflows look like. It's user-defined, very easy to set up and configure, and then it's automatic, right? So something like a submittal or an RFI, we can easily create routing so that the information goes around to the right folks at the right time. If we don't do that, it creates, again, not just an efficiency challenge, but it creates potentially a very costly rework situation or ripple effects, right? Maybe there's a submittal related to particular equipment that we've ordered and is at the job site, right? It could be HVAC units on a building. It could be piping spools for a process piping plant or a chemical plant, oil and gas plant. We've perhaps ordered the components. They're at the job site ready to install, but the submittal has not been approved, right? And we didn't either know that or we knew it, but we assumed it would be approved, and meanwhile, the approver did not know that we were waiting on them, right? So, worst case is, we ordered the wrong stuff, it doesn't get approved, and now we've got a situation where we're spending money to at least return that stuff or correct it. But even best case is we've lost a ton of time, even if it does get approved, if we've lost a couple of days, right? Meanwhile, we're having to take care of that stuff out at the job site. It might be getting in the way of other stuff that needs to be installed. So, we can all relate to the ripple effects that happen. A little problem becomes a little bit bigger problem, and that becomes a little bit bigger problem, and all of a sudden it's a huge problem. So those workflows really go a long way towards making sure that, again, everybody knows what is somebody else waiting on me for, right? And what am I waiting on others for? All of that can be looked at through that single document management solution. So that brings us to problem number 5. So project analysis becomes another challenge, right? If we've got the information in a single source of truth, a single repository, it's searchable, we've got the system routing information around for us, we've got the workflow participants all easily defined, so everybody's getting the information they need when they need it. As things change, all that's working great. What we still need to do is provide the information that managers need to see. Right? People that are making decisions on the projects need to see information, and some of that information is going to be trapped in the document. Some of it's going to be associated with the documents. It might be metadata, attributes related to the documents. And what happens right now, we see most often folks are trying to kind of keep that information out in Excel most often, and then they want to create reports from that. It becomes very challenging, right? We've got lots of different Excel spreadsheets. There's really no consistency or standardization across those spreadsheets. So being able to create logical and meaningful reports from those Excel spreadsheets becomes virtually impossible. It's not impossible because it's you can do a lot of legwork, a lot of Excel hero work, and pull it off, but it's a huge efficiency drain. So the InEight solution, aside from managing all the documentation and all the workflows, we can also create really nice reports for you. So InEight document management solves that project analysis problem by creating user-defined dashboards, creating user-defined KPIs or key performance indexes, user-defined metrics. And what that means is once you've defined what those views are that people need, and again, they could be managers within your own company, they could be stakeholders that are outside of your company that need to get access to status information or trend information, daily report information. All of that can be created easily by the InEight document management tool. So rather than trying to assemble, spreadsheet after spreadsheet and then email that around, as the workflows happen in the document management system, as the information gets checked into it, it can be creating these dashboards for you automatically. Then all you've got to do is provide access to them to the right people. Right. And so whether we're talking about, submittal status, whether we're talking about issues that have been logged, whether we're talking about trends that we're seeing in terms of drawing revisions, scope changes, all of that kind of key information that gives us a feeling for the health of the project can all be easily reflected in those dashboards. We can also create traditional reports, row and column kind of reports that get sent around and distributed just like we do with the documentation itself. But the nice thing about the dashboards and the analytics, as we call it, is that you can drill into the data. So you don't have to kind of anticipate everybody's questions, before you send them a spreadsheet or a report. What might they want to see or what questions might they have? Because the data is live, if you're looking at a bar chart or a pie graph or a trend line and you have questions about it, you can just click on it and drill down to the next level of detail and answer your own questions on that. So it truly is it's not just a reporting and dashboard tool, it truly is analytics where you can drill down, drill sideways, drill up, and look for the answers to the questions that you have, as opposed to a static report that might answer one question, then I've got to call somebody or email and say, yeah, but what about this or what about that? We're providing a solution that you can answer your own questions for that. This last quote here kind of sums it up. As our customers move from a state where the documents are in multiple silos, the documents, drawings, specs, photos are in 5, 6, 10 different places. As our customers implement the InEight solution, they pull all that information into a single repository. They create workflows to make sure everybody is staying up to date. Everybody's getting the correct information that they need as things change on the project. The reports are being generated. The dashboards are being made available to everybody that needs them. This last statement here kind of sums it up, right? We ultimately allow all the different project teams to have the right information at the right time to make decisions and keep the project moving forward.
Thank you, Brad, for providing an excellent overview of how construction executives can gain more efficiencies and productivity and reduce risk, all by addressing their document management chaos. Just to recap, the 5 fundamental problems the construction industry faces in 2019 include locating information, distributing information to the right people in a timely fashion, risk, communication breakdown, and time-consuming project analysis. But when you have one single source of truth, you gain better communication throughout the project, have more project visibility. This means knowing what's happening on your projects so you can proactively manage your projects and reduce risk, which lessens the chance of costly and time-consuming rework. These are all byproducts of a single source of truth in document management like InEight solutions, and all can make the difference in your next construction project. It looks like we received a few questions during our presentation. Here's one. I've been considering a document management solution, but I'm wondering how long it will take to get my staff trained on it.
Yeah, that's a great question to start us off with. So certainly different companies are going to be in different situations that are going to affect how long it takes. Typically what we see is document management. A document management solution is one of, if not the easiest implementations of technology that a contractor or owner or engineer can do, because it doesn't require a lot of upfront work, or you don't have to get, if you're putting in a new accounting system, there's all kinds of ramifications to that, or a field collection system where you've got to make sure you're getting data from timesheets, for example, back into the home office. With a document management system, it's pretty straightforward in terms of really the key is to understand the change management and it's really about training, right? How do we get people to recognize, hey, this is where we store stuff, this is where we're going to check information in, and then really get those workflows that I mentioned set up. So one of the nice things about document management solutions as well is that you can do it on a project-by-project basis. You don't have to boil the ocean and implement it across every single project you've got going on. You can do it for a single project. And so, maybe the short answer to that question is we typically see folks implementing the InEight document management solution in a matter of weeks. It's not a months-long process with a lot of consultants running around. It's very, very quick and easy to implement.
Here's another question. Is there mobile functionality with this? I would love to be able to tackle checklists and punch lists from the project site while on an iPad.
You betcha. Yep. We certainly recognize that a lot of this work is being done by folks that are away from the office, right? They're at the job site. They're at a if I'm the contractor, I might be at a sub's office or the engineer's office, at the job site, all in a single day, right? As well as perhaps my own office. So I'm moving around, and I need to be able to do the work without stopping and going back to the office or finding carrying around a laptop or getting access to a full machine. So we've made sure that the things that we've talked about today can be done on a mobile device, whether it's a phone or a tablet. And that way everybody can participate in these workflows and view information, view drawings, specs, documents, on that tablet, for example, wherever you're at, without, again, without losing time getting to a place where I can get onto my laptop back in the office.
Sure. So here's another question we got in. When all is said and done, what's one piece of advice you would give us for accelerating how fast we find documents?
Yeah, I think really that single source of searchable truth is the answer to that, right? The best thing that can be done, and like I said, it's very quick implementation and can result in a huge benefit. Just creating that single content repository for all the information is the first step, right? Things like workflows and forms and routing roles and customizing transmittals with your logo. I mean, all that kind of stuff can be done, but the basic step of let's get and agree that we're going to have a single place where all this project documentation is stored, that is really the first step and, frankly, has the largest benefit, right? And that immediately changes behavior, right? Everybody knows where to go find information. Everybody is held accountable because we know that they're looking at that information. We know when they've downloaded it. So, putting that document management single source repository in place is really the first step towards all the benefits we've talked about.
Okay. Here's another one. How do you feel a collaborative document management solution should integrate with all my other field and control processes required by my company?
Yeah, so certainly, the document management system, any document management system, InEight is no different, it is not creating documentation. It holds documentation and routes it around and notifies folks of what they need to do to that documentation. But generally, the documentation itself is created elsewhere, right? Created by a drawing might be created by a design system, or a spec might be created by Microsoft Word, or content coming from an email that needs to be included in the repository. So you really want to make sure that the document management system integrates with these other solutions. So we've made sure that InEight ties in with common systems that are used out there. So, for example, Microsoft Outlook, there is a plug-in in InEight document that ties right into Microsoft Outlook, so that all the project communication that's happening via email automatically gets stored in that document repository. It's searchable, and emails and the attachments within them can participate in those workflows like we talked about. So having those connections, to common systems like that is important for a document management system. Certainly being able to load and view common file types, whether it's, word processing files, whether it's drawing types, even 3D models, right? We want to be able to make sure that, right within the document management system, you can open up those files that were created by those other tools, even if you don't have those other tools. And then, the other part of that is making sure that there are easy connections. Our document management system lives in the cloud, which makes it easy for people to get to it. You don't have to install a bunch of software on your machine. But, as you generate content, generate documents perhaps on your laptop, we want to have an easy ability to sync those up into the cloud, into that common source. So that's another nice aspect of the InEight document management solution, is that you can create essentially the ability to sort of listen for, hey, when new content is created on this file on this particular machine, automatically upload it into the repository. So, all of that really has to do with, tying in with those other systems that you use, whether they're design systems or project control systems or any of the various tools that are used during the project lifecycle. We want to make sure the InEight document management system can easily bring information in from those tools without our users having to do any extra legwork to make that happen.
Sure. I think we have time for one more question. We are trying to use Excel today to report and analyze our project document data. Can you talk a little bit more about how InEight can help us analyze our data?
Yeah, and that gets back to really, the information that is associated with all the documents in the repository. So, we didn't really talk about that, but all the documents, drawings, photos, etc., are going to have attributes associated with them. It's up to the user to decide, how much of that do we want to do, how much, of that behavior do we want to enforce. So, as for example, when I bring in a photo, I should tag it at least in some way, right? Perhaps what discipline does it have to do with? Is it associated with a particular, schedule activity, or might be tagged to a particular stakeholder, designer or a subcontractor. So, all of those tags, and by the way, we can create those tags automatically in some cases. So if we're loading up drawings, for example, into the repository, we can read the engineer stamp and the mast and look at what we can automatically interpret things out of that drawing itself to know, might be a revision number, and it's got a date stamp on it. A lot of things like that can be read right from the drawing and tagged. But where I'm going with that is, with those tags in place, then we can start to look at really nice reports that are digestible and consumable for people looking at the reports and dashboards. So, for example, we're not just looking at, maybe submittal status, right? Just overall submittal status, but instead we can drill that down into, what is the submittal status based on the different stakeholders, or what is the submittal status based on the different disciplines of the work or phases of the work, or even related to a particular work package, right? So we can really drill down, and the system can give you a really nice detail level reports without you having to do a lot of work, right? Whereas using Excel just invariably creates a lot of work. And the challenge with using Excel as a reporting tool is it's not dynamic, right? The data is not flowing into Excel automatically. So it's really a static representation, and then you've got to go update that spreadsheet the next time you want to run that report. So the InEight tool gives you that automated reporting, and it gives you that detail level analytics that again keeps people informed, answers their questions, eliminates a lot of those question and answer sessions that end up happening back and forth through email and phone calls. In fact, one thing I'll point out, along those lines is, as we kind of wrap it up here, when we think about the benefits of all that we've talked about here in terms of bringing this information together, keeping everybody on the same page, the ultimate benefit to that, obviously, avoiding rework, which can be extremely costly, those sort of situational things can be avoided. But overall, there's a tremendous efficiency gain, right? So if we think about the staff portion, not so much the craft, but the staff portion of these projects, the project engineers, field engineers, project managers. One of our customers, interestingly, before implementing the InEight solution, had been focused on solving a particular metric. They look at staff man hours as a ratio, staff man hours over volume or over revenue, if you will. So essentially looking at the equation of how many, if we grow the revenue, the sort of denominator of that equation, are we also having to grow the man hours that it takes to manage those projects, right? Or can we improve that metric? Can we grow the revenue faster than we're growing the staff man hours, right, or the overhead essentially? And this company had been trying to lower that ratio or improve that ratio for, I believe it was 15 years, and it was pretty static. They, despite implementing different tools and implementing different processes, business flows, just couldn't really make any, couldn't move that needle. And after implementing the InEight solution now into year 3 of that, they've improved that one metric by 15%. So after many years of not really making any headway on it, all of a sudden now, really due to the benefits that we've talked about here today and those efficiency gains, they've seen that needle move to the improvement of 15%. Which really gives them the ability, and that's a solution like this can help companies take on more work without the requisite increase in man hours and people. So you can take more work through the same level of overhead that you have today, and scale the business in a way that really can streamline growth.
Absolutely. I want to thank you again, Brad, for sharing all this great information. It does look like this is all the time we have today, but I want to remind everyone that any questions we could not get to during this webinar will be answered by InEight directly. This does conclude today's webinar. As a reminder, today's webinar will be available on demand. Attendees will receive an email with a link to the on-demand recording. Thank you for joining us, and we wish everyone a wonderful day.